Hello and welcome to the Bears and Beers podcast. Yes, we are the unofficial podcast of the Sydney Bears Australian Ice Hockey League team. It's great to have you with us. We are recording this late. It's Friday night. Part of the reason has been due to sickness and unavailability. First of all, my name's Gordon Goodenough. I'm joined here by Matt Wiggins. First of all, Matt, you've got Betty and Artie in the background. How are things with you, mate?
Yeah, really good, thanks, mate. And in the absence of being able to do any meaningful interviews last weekend, I thought I'd interview the dogs this week. So they're primed and ready to go. Yes, I've managed to, touch wood, avoid the illness that's going around or has been going around. So firing on all cylinders and delighted to see Nate the Great back in action after a week of licking his wounds and recovery.
Yes, so Nathan Graham here, the governor and director of hockey operations for the Sydney Bears. It's good to see you back in the land of the living, mate.
That's some endorsement. Thank you, gentlemen. I am not, for one, firing on all cylinders, but I'll definitely rattle my way to the line and do my very best. And apologies to all of those listeners that it appears we have out there demanding the pod for this week. I was the reason for the delay. So apologies for that. And I'm still in a state of shock that people are actually demanding to hear my voice. Typically, it's the complete opposite. So a big thanks and looking forward to riding with you guys again.
So
Should be a good one.
Nathan, so are we.
I'm just going to crack
You don't look all that trustworthy, Matt, but we don't have time to dissect that.
I've just cracked open a beer. I've realised that I'm the only one in this group on a Friday night who is cracking open a beer. But there are pragmatic reasons for that. Nathan, we are going to see how you go running through the scores from last week. It seems like a lifetime ago, but the non-Sydney Bears scores. Take us through what happened.
Yeah, so we had some Friday night hockey down in Melbourne. The Mustangs ran out 6-2 winners over the ice. The Mustangs, their top guys delivered. Timmins had 5 points, Brody Crane 4 points, Caron chipped in with 3, and that included one on the power play and also a short-handed goal. Giesbrecht stopped 40 of 42 in net. Over to the Saturday, the North Stars beat the Adelaide Adrenaline 7-3. North Stars scored 3 of those goals on the power play. Skachkov had a hat-trick and totaled 5 points through the game. Harala 4 points. Dargay and Watanabe with 3 and 2 respectfully. Matis Trinka with the win in that game. At Macquarie, the Rhinos were 5-2 winners over the Dogs. Bastille and Bouchard, they did what they typically do with 5 and 4 points respectively. Sangho Bay chipped in with a couple of goals for the Rhinos there. Oberoi had a 9-5-7 in net for the win. And for the Dogs, Ivan Kuleshov, he had a goal and an assist and chipped in typical fashion. On the Sunday, the Canberra Brave had a 9-5 win in Brisbane. There was a huge spread of production across the Brave lineup in this game. They had 13 individual players with points, led by Bates, Henning and Malin. Alex Tetro in net. He let in 5 on 15 shots, but still managed to record the win. That's not a stat line that you come across all that often. Zach Schenker had a hat-trick for Brisbane, and Batu Gendanov had 2 goals and an assist. Dogs bounced back in a controversial one against the Adrenaline at Macquarie. They were 5-3 winners in that game. 4 of the Dogs' 5 goals came on the power play. Lakovic had 2 goals. Vertesh had 4 assists. Dunn had 4 points. Burrows continued his strong form of late with 61 saves. Again, some big shot totals, particularly on the Dogs net, recorded in that particular game. and that closed off the non-Bears games for the 3-day weekend.
Excellent. Anything catch your eye, Matt, in the on the out of town scoreboard?
Yeah, Rhinos bouncing back to beat the Dogs, and on the 5 goals that the Rhinos scored, Tyler Cabarra picked up 1 assist. All the other goals and assists in that game were courtesy of Messrs Bouchard, Bastille, and Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, Sangho Bay had an excellent game in that one too. He's such a quick player. His speed on the puck is really impressive. But that was a really important result for us. The Ice Dogs losing, and we'll get into why that was a big result for us with the Saturday game. We were in Melbourne, of course, for the doubleheader, playing the Melbourne Ice on the Saturday, and then the Mustangs on the Sunday. And on the Saturday, it was a tough one. It was 8-3 was the final score, but we scored the first goal of the game and just couldn't. It was a close one through 2 periods, and then the Melbourne Ice kind of ran away with it a bit in the 3rd period. What were your thoughts on this one, guys?
I thought it was a tight first period. Apologies. Some really good end-to-end action. Probably an early shout out to Kenny, a great presence of mind to flip the puck out of play for a delay of game minor. Not something that we normally celebrate here on the pod, but I'm sure that he had no doubt that the Goose was going to fly off the bench on a change from Herms and puck Jack Booth and put it low glove beyond a sheeter to open the scoring. Obviously, Berkey then put one through a double screen on the power play to tie it up. But I thought that first period was actually quite an enjoyable one, particularly rinkside.
Yeah, agreed, Nathan. I thought we started really well on Saturday. 2-2-1 when not in possession. The boys working super hard on the forecheck. I saw Ruben throwing the body in the O-zone, which was lovely to see. And yeah, Goose got us first on the board, short-handed, with 2:12 remaining. 13 seconds later, Jamie Burke replied on the power play goal. So 1-1 at the first interval, shots 13-18 against. I felt it was a disappointing end to the period. I thought, if we'd have gone in 1-0 up, that would have been a really good position for us to have held, and I was quite disappointed that we went in level. The referees didn't call much. Game was physical, but I think we all called that out as something we expected to see from the Ice in last week's show.
Yeah, I thought it was a really strong start for the Bears, and then I think Kimlin was excellent, and he made some really important saves through periods 1 and 2, and yeah, as you said, Matt, like we were getting outshot, but it felt like the chances were kind of similar, and then in the second period we got outshot 16-6. So after 2 periods of play, the Melbourne Ice had almost doubled up on us on shots, 34-19. And it just seemed like a matter of time, and the Melbourne Ice, they've been absolutely flying for the last couple of months, and they've got their full roster. They've got ex-NHL players on the roster, and they've got a lot of depth with their local players as well. So it was always going to be a tough game, but that third period really hurt.
I think there were certainly some signs in the second period. Again, even though we ended the second period level, there were some signs that our sort of structure wasn't quite there, and a lot of that may be down to the simple fact that we're so short-handed in that game, and we were on the long change, and there were a couple of bad changes that led to bad changes in terms of us having the players that were going on the ice sitting at the wrong end of the bench and not being able to join the play as quickly as they possibly could. But I thought it was a bit more run and gun. We did exceptionally well to keep the game tight, but it really sort of opened up in the second. And as you say, Gordy, being outshot 16-6, Kimmer was performing, Kimmer like miracles in the second as well. In at the second period 1-1 after a 0-0 second period.
Yeah, I definitely think, as you sort of alluded to there, Matt, throughout the second, I think we started to see the ice just slightly turn the screws. Then heading into the third, we had that 7 or 8 minutes of madness, which really sort of dictated the outcome of the game. I think Schindel was left all alone in front of the net. It was quite strange. There was some, I think maybe 3 different sequences of goals that all looked very, very similar on quite strange plays. I think on the Schindel goal, Herms actually won the face-off, and then there was a mismanagement of the puck in front of Kimmer. I don't know if that was the Schindel goal, gents. Don't know if I'm getting that right or not.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then Carini had a really nice net drive, earn a power play, and we won another face-off, and it was Matt Caruana that jumped on sort of the loose puck and put it past Kimmy. You just don't see that unique passage of play all that often, particularly in the same game, where you're doing half the play right, and then all of a sudden the puck's in the back of your net. And it was just such a strange period of play. And Matt and I were obviously there live, and I'm not sure I can recall such a collapse in such a short space of time for a very long time. And again, just the nature of the opportunities that we were giving up in the slot, particularly the low slot, through the first half of that period, it ended up just being really destructive on the scoreboard.
Yeah, we ended up giving up 5 goals in the first within 6 minutes and 3 seconds of each other.
Yeah, see, there you go.
So we immediately at that stage, you're down 6-1, and the game's gone. The game's out of hand. I mean, we got a power play goal through Dexter Moselle. Then the Ice scored another 2 through David Booth and Colton Schindel. And then Lucas Herman scored probably a flattering goal for us on the power play with a minute left to make it 8-3. It's one of those games, if you give up 50, over 50 shots in the game, there's probably not too many games that you're winning, or that it's not really a sustained recipe for success in the league.
I just want to correct myself. It was actually the Ice's third goal that I was alluding to, where we won the face-off, and it was Caruana that scored. Lake actually set up Schindel in front off a really nice play, and Schindel was left all alone for their second. But I really thought overall for the first 40 minutes, with the exception of maybe 2 passages of play in the second, I thought the guys really battled well. We were well and truly into in the game heading into the third period, and then all of a sudden, let's reference 2 more themes that we've been harping on about over the last month. First period, we give away an advantage almost straight away, and then come the third period, we start slow. Errors start creeping into our game, and unfortunately, again, those errors turn out hurting us on the scoreboard, and all within a very quick succession. It's just so hard to break that momentum.
Yeah, agreed. And Nathan, you and I weren't in the same part of the building on Saturday, but my notes say the same. 2 goals off of sort of broken plays off of face-offs, and 2 sort of bang plays back from behind the net right out into the slot. Very high danger chance scoring position, and there's just nothing Kim is ever going to be able to do about any of those 4 goals. Given where they were scored from, and how quickly those plays materialised. So, yeah, as you say, goals came in a bunch. You know, minute and a half, 2 minutes in between those 5 goals in the at the start of the third period. So all of the hard work that the boys put in, you know, obviously felt super sorry for them. There's some manful efforts going on out there with a rag and bone lineup in terms of the number of fit and healthy bodies that we had available. So did feel very sorry for the boys that they'd seen 40 minutes worth of work, hard work and good work disappear inside of the space of sort of 5 or 6 minutes of the third.
Yeah, and you could see the look of disappointment and I guess somewhat shock on the face of the guys as well. Just sort of this disbelief that, you know, 3 or 4 individual errors and very, very small pieces of detail have all ended up in the back of our net after working so hard for, you know, a good chunk of the game. And again, for the majority of that time, you know, more than skating with the ice. You could probably question some of our execution on different plays, but yeah, that third was certainly you know, really disappointing, and you could just see even just the energy get sucked from our guys a little bit. I do think there were probably some gassed legs at that point in the game as well, you know, playing with a short bench, unfortunately. And, you know, conversely, you know, you look over the Melbourne Ice bench and, you know, they're jumping around and all of their guys are, you know, have lifted a gear. And, you know, that's what can happen. And as you said, Gordy, 6 minutes can really change the complexion of a game.
Yeah, and I think the Melbourne Ice, and we'll get into the Mustangs as well on the Sunday, because I think they're similar. They are a nightmare team to match up against. Like, who are you gonna line match? Like, they have 3 genuinely highly scoring, highly dangerous lines. It must be a complete nightmare for other teams to be able to go out there and say, okay, how do we handle this? You're going to get outmatched eventually.
Yeah, exactly right. And look, I'm even looking at some of the data that we collect, you know, internal, and you know that first period, you know, we generated over 65% of the high danger chances. We just didn't have anything to really show for it. And certainly the stats would indicate that, you know, probably midway through the second period, you know, the Ice, they started to ramp up their shot generation. Obviously, neither team could convert in the second, but those numbers started to really blow out in the third, and that's probably highlighted, you know, by some of the moments that we've already gone through. But that high and low slot really became open in the third period, and like we said last week on the pod, the Ice have got a lot of weapons. You look at the box score, all the weapons are there, prominent, and very similar to the game that we played them at Macquarie. It was the third period swing in the favour of the Ice, and again, some of their big guys coming up when it mattered most. So again, some similarities between those two games.
I noticed a distinct change in their play as well. The late second period onwards, Nathan, they were cycling the puck a lot more. You know, they were almost kind of dragging us into that physical matchup battle on the ice, and you know, almost it felt to me as though they had in their mind that there was another 20 minutes and they were going to try and gas us as quickly as possible. I noticed on a couple of the power plays that they were very patient, and they moved the puck around and set very clever little picks as they moved the pucks from side to side. So that was something that really, you know, we talked about the Canberra Brave power play the other day and how smartly they move it, and the role that Peter Bates plays in that power play off the half wall. The Melbourne Ice power play is very different. They move the puck around, you know, all 4 points of the rink, but they do use those bumper guys to set picks as the puck moves from sort of east to west. So smart execution, good coaching there, and obviously it appeared to me that the Ice were playing the long game and kind of setting us up for a really tough third period there, which seemed to be the case. I mean, one thing that we do need to say here, guys, is we went into that game with really only 3 full-time recognised defensemen in Tyrell, in Mac, and in Kev. And obviously Kenny and Finn were filling in manfully. I did notice that Brian was playing right defence once on a penalty kill or shortly after a penalty kill. So it's super back to the wall stuff for the guys, and I do take my hat off to them for playing in positions that aren't natural to them or their first choice positions. So we can't be too hard on the boys, but I think a combination of us just running out of steam, getting a bit raggedy within our system, and obviously as you get tired you make physical mistakes and mental mistakes, and good execution from the Melbourne Ice.
Yeah, it felt like a game where we really missed Goat. Alex Gautier, the physical element, that he kind of brings, and you could see, some of the guys like Mac Caruana wrestling Gustav Remler Jensen to the ground, and who's able to match that and discourage that, and the Melbourne Ice, they play a particular brand of hockey. They can outscore you, but they can also be quite physical. That's a big part of our physical presence on the ice is what he's able to bring.
I think now that the ice are fully built, they have an ability to really hit you in waves. Where they're rolling multiple lines that have an ability to sort of hem you in your zone, and I think they really took command of their ozone really throughout the majority of that third period, and probably even the second half of the second period as well. And you're right, Gordy, it makes it really tough when you've got sort of a D group that's already being pieced together, and you've got first change on the road. It makes that matchup component really, really difficult, and that equation only gets more and more challenging as the game unfolds, particularly when you start falling behind on the scoreboard. So yeah, a bunch of things probably working against us there. Really unfortunate. And look, I must say, after the game, talking to the guys, no one wanted to make excuses. Sure, short bench, there's probably some physical fatigue, maybe some mental fatigue as well, but that's not an excuse. You've got to battle through, and full credit to the guys. I thought, really that whole game, they showed fight, they showed, energy where they could. I don't think this was a work ethic problem. But unfortunate nonetheless.
So Sunday we went in to play the Mustangs, who were fresh off their win on the Friday night against the Melbourne Ice, and sitting in that spot, tied for second in the standings. And we ended up coming out. We scored the first goal, and that was about as good as it got for us after that, really. We ended the second period. We were by no means out of it after period one, but we did let in a couple of goals, including a shorthanded goal by Brodie Crane, who had himself an outstanding weekend. Take us through what you saw, Matt, in that first period.
Yeah, look, I was down at ice level, and I loved our first period, if I'm completely honest. I was super delighted with the way the boys came out. We were on the body, the forecheck was great. It felt to me at ice level, and obviously the game's always a bit quicker at ice level than it is high up in the stands. It felt like there was jump to our game and energy. I thought we'd got our structure back in place again when we weren't in possession and the boys were playing to a plan. So I thought we were winning our fair share of loose puck battles. We had a very good chance. Ruben was denied on a one-on-one. Dex threw 2 or 3 thunderous hits, which I'm here for all the time. We ended up back behind on the shot clock 8-15 after the first. There was a boarding call. Brian got absolutely smished from behind, and I thought it was an obvious candidate for a potential 5-minute, but the officials didn't seem to share my opinion on that. And after a good start, Lucas got us ahead halfway through the period. Again, a bang-bang play. He took a feed from behind the net from Louis and finished off very sharply. But that sort of equaliser from Brodie Crane and then the shorty at the end of the period, really hurt us. It looked as though they came out with a plan. I think both the first two goals and maybe some of the later goals were all in the high part of the net. I thought it looked to me the first two goals were high glove on Hayden, but it seemed a high propensity of their shooting strategy was to go top part of the net, high glove, high blocker. But I didn't mind our first period at all, Gordy, I have to say. I thought the boys played really well with heart, spirit, and again, back to the plan.
Yep. Nathan?
Yeah, look, I'd agree. I think, quick shout out. I thought the goal that Herms scored was pretty well put together. Mac poked it around the back of the net. Louis made a really nice play to find Herms. And, I agree with you, Matt. I thought for the rest of the period, I thought we were relatively strong. We certainly saw, too much of Crane, Sasaki. That short-handed goal really took the wind out of our sails, I feel. And unfortunately, we were going to see, more of that as the game unfolded. Way too many moments in time where we saw Crane, taking it up the ice all alone, winning stick battles and forcing turnovers and creating opportunities. He really has a shot. When you see him play live, you can understand why he's been so clinical from a production perspective. He's got a really quick release. And the way that he put his goals away were really impressive. I don't think Plim's really had an opportunity on those goals.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brodie Crane over the last certainly the last few weeks, he has been arguably the best, the most productive player in the league. He's been absolutely on fire. This was his second hat-trick in 2 weekends. Shout out to the Melbourne Mustangs graphic design team. They've come out with some beauties. They came out with a beauty on the Crane train. But if you look at Brodie Crane's kind of figures over the last couple of months, 4-point game, 4-point game. He's had in his last 6 games, he's had 23 points in his last 6 games, which is just obscene. So he's, it's certainly a case of facing a player in quite fantastic form, and full credit to the Mustangs. They finished the weekend second in the standings, and they've been really good. They've been a very good outfit.
Goal actually came after a great play from Herms in our defensive zone. He broke play up and sort of created a little bit of daylight between him and the defenders for the second time in one-on-one, and the Mustangs caught him back up and just lifted his stick and then turned the puck over and went straight back down the other end to score. So we went from a breakaway at one end to a 2-on-1 back the other way, which they converted. I thought we turned the puck over a lot at the blue lines, both our offensive and defensive blue line, but it felt almost not a full repeat, but those signs were emerging again from the third period of the game the night before. It looked as though we were tired. It looked as though Mustangs had got gas in the tank, and we were just making those sort of small errors that they were able to capitalise on. But as we mentioned last week, they're a very good team, balanced scoring. Again, another matchup nightmare, and obviously we added Ox and Colby Schumack to the squad on Sunday morning. But the boys were again just really giving everything and almost running on empty. My reflection of the weekend is, we conceded a lot of goals and didn't score many and took 2 heavy defeats. But for mine, I thought we were there or thereabouts for 3 of the 6 periods of hockey we played. So I thought we played 2 excellent first periods on both Saturday and Sunday. And we were there or thereabouts in the second period of the ice game, but in those late stages of the second and certainly the third periods of both games, both the Mustangs and the ice put us to the hammer.
I think we have started games really well. I think it's kind of interesting because the first 11 games of the season, right, we couldn't score the first goal to save our lives. We scored the first goal 3 of those 11 games. In the past 12 games, we've scored the first goal of the game 11 times. So we've gotten out to a good start. We've been able to get a lead, but in those 11 games, we've only got like we're running at less than 50%. Like we've got 5 wins in those last 11 games, and league wide, if you score the first goal of the game, you have a 75% chance of winning. So looking back at the last 12, we've scored 11 times. You're looking at we should have another 3 wins there, statistically. And that obviously doesn't account for a lot of things, and we are very much depleted personnel wise, and we saw that on the weekend. But I think there are definitely good signs where we are prepared. We're getting out. We're starting games well. We just need the legs to be able to carry it through.
Yeah, look, there's some things there, particularly in the third period, that I think the coaching staff would be particularly frustrated at. Obviously, we gave up that second short-handed goal to Crane when we coughed it up. And then we had a sequence where we took too many men. We had a check to the head, even though there wasn't a lot in it. And I say that with respect to a check to the head. It was the right call on the ice. Then we had roughing call and an interference minor. That absolutely killed that sequence of ill discipline. Absolutely killed any possible chance that we had to find our way back into that game. And I'm sure there's probably a degree of frustration creeping into our game at that point. All of a sudden we're staring down the barrel of a really, really tough weekend. We've got a depleted group. There are probably some components there that you've got to respect. But that was probably another takeout for me. It's almost like we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. Once that shorthanded goal went in at the start of the third or a couple of minutes into the third period, then that was paired with, a group of events that really called it game for us, unfortunately. We're already down on the scoreboard, and then what was in our control, we probably let slip, and I'm sure the guys acknowledge that. It was a really tough weekend at that point.
Yeah, that too many men on the ice call, Nathan, was 9 seconds after our power play had expired.
Really tough, shouldn't happen.
Yeah, from my position, we'd been too many men on the ice for quite a while. I do recall the official very flamboyantly pointing and shouting out the numbers, and we were certainly caught with our hand in the cookie jar there. But yeah, 9 seconds after our power play expired, that one really, really hurts.
Yeah, 2 shorties in that fashion, and then penalties like that, it just can't happen.
So that meant that for the first time in a while, we were outside of a final spot. Got pushed down into 7th place after the Ice Dogs won their game against Adelaide on the Sunday. Puts us, we're within touching distance. We're on 34 points. The Melbourne Ice in 6th, who have played an equal amount of games, are on 35. The Ice Dogs have 2 games in hand. They're on 36 points. The Brave, 2 games in hand on 38. So entering this weekend, we play a 2-game weekend. We're playing the Rhinos, who are just below us on 29 points on Sunday. But first up on the Saturday, we play the Ice Dogs, who are in the 5th playoff spot on Saturday. And this Sydney derby, this is a big one. The Wilson Cup is obviously in the balance. If we do not win by 4 goals or more, then the Wilson Cup will go to the Sydney Ice Dogs for the first time since 2018. Let's get into this one, guys. What are your thoughts heading in?
Well, first of all, you're full of cheery facts and figures, aren't you?
Oh, mate, I could have shared more depressing ones, but let's keep it how it is.
For mine, I think I don't think we could have a better game in terms of motivation to try to bounce back from last weekend. If we can't get ourselves up for a game as crucial as the one you've just couched there, Gordy, in terms of position on the ladder, in terms of us falling out of a playoff spot for the first time in a number of weeks, in terms of the relevance of the Wilson Cup, and in terms of the boys, really making a statement of the last 2 weekends are in the rearview mirror, and we're back to it. Sorry, the Canberra Brave weekend and the Melbourne teams weekends. So for mine, I think we've got a great opportunity to restate a claim and move back up into those playoff spots on Saturday.
Massive game. We've said this for weeks, but we're now getting to a point. What are we? 7 games remaining. We're in a dogfight, pun intended. There's a lot of 6-point games here. I've also said this. It might sound arrogant, but this is winnable. There's just things that we need to do right that are in our control. I think discipline's a big one against the Dogs. Their power play's been going along at a really nice clip all season. I think you might find they're perhaps the top. You'll know this, Gordy, but I think they might be the top power play in the league. If not, they're definitely right up there. And it's been a huge part of their production over the last sort of 3 to 4 weeks. So I think that's one big element. Looking for a really fast start to this game. I think we'll know a lot, inside that first 5 to 10 minutes. Hopefully the boys can come out with a really strong level of jump and get on the forecheck and start really cementing and asserting themselves on the ozone. I think all those other things that we know. It's going to be a packed house. This game's been sold out for a very long time. I think we've got almost every single partner attached to the club in the house for this game as well. I would hope that we, possibly have a Nick Sites sighting. I'd also hope that perhaps we might see the return of number 16, Ryan Annesley. Ryan did the most he could to get back into the lineup in Melbourne, but it wasn't quite to be. Hopefully this weekend we'll see him out there. Look, guys, it's a huge one. Hopefully we can assert some dominance early and then roll with it. But the Dogs, they're definitely a team that should be respected, and they've got enough guys to do some damage. Lakovic has been a really good ad for them. Vertesh has been an amazing ad. I don't know exactly what his production is, but I know that he's been going along at a really good rate. And he's a pretty sharp, nifty skater as well. So he's a guy that we're really going to have to keep tabs on. Dunn's been really solid since they brought him in on the blue line, and Burrows has had a huge season in net. You can almost guarantee that he's going to give a quality start or close to a quality start every time. So we're going to have to put a lot of pressure on him, and hopefully we can stay out of the box and really start moving through those rotations and allow our forward depth to put us on the right side of this.
I know we mentioned it in one of our first episodes that when we were previewing the Sydney Derby, that it felt like that one was going to be the biggest one that we had seen since 2008, which was when both the Bears and Ice Dogs were in finals. This one feels like whoever wins this game has an inside track to the 6th spot for finals. I think it's going to be a real dogfight. coming to the end of the season, and you look at the teams. I know Melbourne Ice are in sixth, but they've been absolutely flying. The Ice Dogs have lost a couple of their big, producers, and Cal Costa, Grant Toulmon's out long term. So they're kind of, if you look at their record over the last 10 games, they're kind of, similar to us, not their finest run of form of the season. But yeah, really, really good opportunity for us.
I think certainly talking to, people attached to both Melbourne teams on the weekend, looking at the sheer numbers, you can probably safely assume that you're going to need to find a way to most likely get around that 46-point range, I would think, which I think for us would equate to 4 wins out of these 7 games. It's there or thereabouts, but then you also throw in, the fact of the nature of some of the teams that we're playing. We've got, there's 2 games against the Rhinos, there's a game against the Dogs, there's also a game against Melbourne Ice on the road. Again, a lot of 6-point games here. Is that essentially how you guys see it? Is that how this equation is starting to look from your perspective?
Pete Lambert has done. He does a lot of work during the season on this, and he's been operating on around about like a 44-point kind of threshold. But I do think it's going to be higher, and the reason I say that is because if you look at the Ice Dogs, and I know that they are most inspiring run of form at the moment, but if you look at the schedule that they have, so they have 9 games left, right? So they're on that 36-point mark. So 3 wins essentially would get them over that kind of 44-point threshold, right? But have a look at the schedule. So they play us, they play the Brave, they play the Melbourne Ice. Okay, so those are tough games. Then they play the Adrenaline in Adelaide. That's winnable. They play the North Stars at Macquarie. That's a tough one. Play the North Stars away. Then they play Rhinos at Arena. That's winnable. And then they've got 2 games against the Brisbane Lightning to end the season. So that's their finish. So their final 3 games are against teams out of the playoff race, pretty much. And four of their remaining games are against teams out of the finals race. They've got a pretty decent schedule to be able to get another 12 points. So then suddenly you're looking at that and you're like, well, where does that put the Ice Dogs? If they get 12 points, that's 48. Suddenly 50 points?
Yeah.
It's going to be tight. And, we've seen seasons before where teams have kind of scraped into that 6th spot with the 2 conference system, and they haven't even had a winning record. This isn't one of those seasons.
Yeah, well, 5 regulation wins would get us to 49 points. We're obviously just crunching some numbers here to give the listeners a rough understanding of what this looks like. 5 regulation wins gets us to 49, if my maths serves me correct. I think I can do those numbers. But again, there's 2 games against Perth, tough, and we finish at home against the North Stars. So on paper, at least, our run home is looking more difficult. But look, in this league as well, I don't know how much stock we should be putting into what matchups look like on paper either. There's always surprises. So the bottom line here is this is still in our control, but our finals effectively start now. I think that's fair to say. And great opportunity ahead. We said that last week, wasn't to be. The stakes increase again. Big opportunity this weekend.
Even just the nature of our games, the final 3 weekends of the season are single game weekends for us.
Yeah.
So if we, say on August 2nd, if we've got a 2-point cushion for, in the 6th spot for finals, like we things are out of our hands then. These other teams will have 5 games left to play. and we'll be stuck there, hoping out of town results, go our way, which we'll do it, but it won't be comfy.
Yeah, if you look at that 44, the initial 44-point benchmark, Gordy, you look at the table as it stands, North Stars, Mustangs, Thunder already there. Brave have got games in hand, as many as 4 games in hand over the Mustangs, and you would imagine the form that we've seen them in the last few weeks. They'd comfortably make, a 2, 3 or a 4 spot, even maybe the top spot. So to me, it feels like it's 3 teams fighting for 2 spots, and that's us, the Ice and the Ice Dogs. Unless, of course, the Rhinos go on as much of a winning run as they've been on a losing run recently, albeit that they did upset the apple cart against the Dogs of all teams last weekend. So it does feel it's 3-2, and as I said in the previous episode, all the hard work, all the adversity, man games lost, injuries, wouldn't it be a huge pity if we were the team finishing in 7th, looking in, 2 points out of 6th spot?
Yep.
And we've got 5 of our last 7 at Macquarie. Another interesting angle here I just noticed looking at Melbourne Ice. So they've got Brisbane at home this weekend. Then they've got Ice Dogs at home. Huge game, within this recipe. Then they've got us at home. They've got 2 games against... It's interesting. My notes here say that they've got Canberra 3 times, but maybe that's incorrect, and they've only got... Oh no, they do. They've got Canberra 3 times, and then in the middle of that sandwich, they've got Adelaide at home once. So they've got
Tough.
They've got a pretty tough run home as well, and 2 of those 3 against the Brave are in Canberra. So there's a lot to play out here. This is actually quite a fascinating finish.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be optimistic, as I think we should be.
Yep.
But there's actually some really interesting threads attached to this race of, as you say, Matt, talking in real terms, this is 3-2. That's what this looks like.
Yep.
Singular theme, Nathan, is we've got to win our games, and we've got to find ways of accumulating points in games that we don't win. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's just win games. Let's go and do that. Let's go and win games.
We do need that one. We probably won't spend as much time covering it, but the game on the Sunday at Erina, the Rhinos, they had, entering in that game against the Ice Dogs, they secured 6 of a possible 39 points in their previous 13 games. Just a horrendous run of form, and they pulled out a really good win against the Ice Dogs, and Anand Oberoi was spectacular. So we're not dismissing the Rhinos by any means, and their power play. I thought their power play it's really, really good at being able to drag that high forward out of position, and then move around and find some seam passes to take advantage. And I saw that the last time that they played at Macquarie just a couple of weeks ago, and it was very impressive. So we'll need to be on our game to get 6 points this weekend, but it's definitely possible. I think if we play to our potential.
Agreed.
Yeah, that Rhinos game in Erina feels like a big old banana skin to me, Gordy. I think the boys have got to be as up for that game, and I'm sure they will be, as they are going to be for the Ice Dogs game. They're equally as big. We've just got the spice of it being the Sydney Derby on Saturday. But, if we win that game and then we slip up on the Central Coast, we've achieved half of the, mandated requirement for the weekend.
I think if we can use that last game against the Rhinos, and in fact even the last time we played them at Erina, I think we've cited that before. We put in a really good performance in that game as well. In that last game, Kimmer had a 9-2-6. We held the Rhinos to 27 shots. When we hold opposition teams to 30 or less shots, our win percentage goes through the roof. Our save percentage, creeps up into the 920, 930 range. Again, it's a cheap stat, but there's definitely some components out of that game that I'd love to see us take forward. The power play delivered in that game as well. We were 3 for 5 on the job, and really we didn't give up a lot on net in the way of dangerous opportunities as well. It's not just about the cumulative count, it's actually the nature of the shots and the quality of the shots that you're giving up. And we really contained the Rhinos to very little across both of those games.
Yeah, it feels to me if you can keep Bouchard, Bastille, Bay quiet, that's a matchup that is much more comfortable for us than the ones that we've seen against the Ice and the Mustangs and the Brave in the last few weeks. So I think, to me, the Rhinos go as those three go. And obviously, as we've just discussed, we've got to keep Kuleshov, Vertes and Dunn, was it, the other chap, quiet this Saturday?
Dunn.
Yeah.
Lakovic. Yep, exactly. I think there's quite a contrast in the matchup element of this weekend versus the previous weekend in Melbourne. Both Melbourne teams are very deep. They do come at you in waves. They can roll, particularly the Mustangs, they can roll 3 really potent lines. When you look at the configuration of both the Dogs and the Rhinos, they're probably more top-heavy. They still have their group of weapons, but they're not really spread throughout. And you could safely and respectfully argue that neither of the teams that we're playing this weekend have the degree of depth and the pedigree that we came up against in Melbourne. So, again, 2 very dangerous teams, but certainly a little bit different in the way the teams match up. And it certainly helps tomorrow or today for listeners. We're obviously recording this Friday evening. To have last change at home is also a factor as well. It gives coaches a little bit more of an ability to dictate, who's out there at any one time. So,
yeah. All right. Well, gents, any final thoughts?
Let's just go and get some points. I'm tired of sitting here regurgitating the same commentary about these games being so big, etc. Let's just go and win some games. Let's do a mini reset here. Let's start our finals campaign early and start, rolling forward with some momentum. I know the guys are up for it. We're certainly, a team that's seen, a lot of adversity. I think that really came to the fore last weekend. But hopefully we've got some bodies back over the course of this weekend. Hopefully that should put us in good shape. And let's hope it's a fiery crowd, a great product on the ice, and 3 points in the derby. And then hopefully we can go back to back in Erina and have a really good vibe on the pod next week.
Great to have you back,
Matt?
Nathan. Yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone at Macquarie. Let's make it loud and proud and hostile on Saturday. Please say hi to us if you see us there. But let's bring it and cause some trouble at Macquarie. Come on, boys, we've got this.
Just a quick shout out to the travelling fans that made their way to Melbourne as well. It was really nice to see some of the support down there, and also a shout out to both Melbourne teams for their hospitality. Both organisations down there, run a really class game day. They've got some really good people wrapped around their organisations, and always nice to spend some time down there with some really good people. So a thanks there, and it was also nice to have your company in Melbourne as well, Matt.
Thanks for having me along, mate.
Yes, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention as well that Lucas Herman has continued his point streak. He has a 20-game active points streak, has scored 41 points during that time span. Is pretty impressive. So congrats to him, and looking forward to a big weekend from everyone on the team, hopefully. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for making us a part of your week as well. It was very lovely to see all the messages, checking in to see if everything was okay, and it's great that we're all able to have been able to get together and record, albeit late. Give us a follow on socials. Have a search for a Bears and Beers podcast. And in the meantime, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.